we have our special edition podcast at YXE Votes 2020. I'm your host, Randy Shabilo. We are one-on-one today with Cary Tarasoff, a mayoral candidate for the civic election, November 9th, 2020. We've just caught him in the middle of some work and campaigning. And Cary, thanks so much for taking a little break here and sharing your vision with us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk about something that reaches pretty well everyone in the city, property taxes. And whether you're a business owner or someone in a residence or an apartment, you're still paying that property tax. What can you share with us with regards to your opinions and vision for what you see as the civic property tax and where it would go under your leadership as mayor?
Well, I know a lot of people would like property taxes cut right now, and I don't know enough about the city finances in a pandemic to say that I could get that through because we're running a deficit. And the last thing I want to do is pretend to cut taxes right now and then double them up next year because we're hitting such a shortfall. What I can promise is that I would cut all the big spending things right now. That's the best I can do, and to minimize expenses as best possible so that we have some idea of what's going on. Taxes is a big issue for personal because a lot of times when people are paying residents, they're already paying a tax before their tax bill ever arrives because they're paying extra on their utilities, and the city takes that money out ahead of time, extra profits. They dump it in the city revenues, and you don't realize you just paid tax on stuff over and above. So your water bill, your electric, your sewer, you're paying extra on everything, way beyond the cost of providing the service. So there's a tax there that nobody pays attention to. And then they create a tax rate and they say, oh, look, we're so low, except that they're not including all the other costs. Businesses pay extra because of the weighting, but then their sewer and water costs their service costs are crazy compared to residential. And so, I mean, a business can pay $7,000 a year just for a water service, and they haven't even turned on the tap yet, just to have it running, just to have it there. And businesses are getting hurt this way. And the city is charging companies that use water but don't create sewer a lot. Like, they use it in their process, and yet they have to pay twice. So there's just too many things around taxation. It's hurting people, but I think it needs to be looked at a lot better from the inside, and also during the pandemic in the lens of this. I don't know. I can't promise to do anything until I know where everything is falling. And the only thing I can do is the big costs.
So you mentioned the big cost. If we look at those big costs and big projects, we have underway right now the new central library, new downtown library, the relocation of that. There's also the bus rapid transit, or BRT, that's been on the plans for some years now, as well as the downtown arena and convention center. So those types of projects, in your opinion, do we kind of go ahead with them, put pause, scrap, improve? What would you do as mayor?
Well, we owe $331 million right now, plus. So that's a lot of money. That's a stack of $50 bills, 1,933 feet tall, taller than a CN Tower. We owe that already. So we can't pay that back. We have a debt ceiling beyond that, but we might need to use that to keep services on for people, to keep their lives going. We already have an arena that nobody can use. We have a library that some people can kind of use, but not that much. It's not falling down like they say. The building is good. They just haven't been maintaining it. They've been taking money out and saving it for a new building instead of maintaining the building they're in. Bus rapid transit, if we don't know where the arena is a waste to put in. And it's not a rapid transit the way that other cities have, because we're not dedicating all the lanes. And if you look at bus rapid transit, they're predicting that they could hit a certain model of ridership, but they would have to take Confederation Park and level everything, the mall, the superstore, all the way down to Co-op. Cowtown would have to be gone, redeveloped. So move out 50, 60 businesses and then redevelop, put in all of these streets and then all these bus rapid transit areas. And then they hope they're going to hit their ridership targets. The same thing for Circle Center Mall would have to be leveled to meet the plan that they've given. So they're never going to meet their targets. And right now we're supposed to hit 62 riders per capita, and we're in 35. So we spend $28 million a year on bus service beyond what it costs us now. We're going to spend another 120 some million to hope that we get more riders for a more expensive service. Well, we can do things to make life better for people in buses, put in better shelters, predictive model. And those are small costs that we could do without going to these huge expensive things. So I also think for the arena that we need to plan better for the future, and we need to make sure before an arena goes downtown that we can plan for traffic. Because there's no sense putting an arena, in my view, downtown if we can't deal with the traffic that's going to ensue around that. And right now, the rail cuts us off so much that it would be detrimental to the success of an arena if we haven't dealt with that first. So first would come some traffic idea of how we're going to deal with rail, then the arena location, then bus transit, some not really rapid, but whatever. And the library is trying to capitalize on where the bus rapid system will be in, except that they're going to be the bookend for the Ramey Modern at one end a second, and it'll be this monumental library at the other end, and people in between that can't get to either. So,
What is your background, Cary, that gives you a little bit more of a well-versed opinion on some of the design work that you're talking about?
I don't usually toot my own horn, but I'm a Bachelor of Science from the University of Saskatchewan. I'm a registered planner in the province of Saskatchewan and in Canada. I've got 30 some years experience. I'm a registered technologist. I'm a draftsman. I've worked in mining. I've worked in commercial, residential, institutional. Um, I was in the military for a lot of years. So I'm a farm kid. I mean, so all of these different things draw on different experiences in my life that are real. Right now, I work for a large developer a lot that I do some big projects, which you'll know of in the city. But that doesn't make me an expert, but I can tell you that I know the problems that we have at the city around development, infill, um, offsite levies is a joke. They're hindering development, and these people don't get it. They don't get how they're restricting business, but I get it. And if I'm become mayor, I can tell you that I will be pushing hard to get this dealt with. Corman Park is taking our lunch every day because people find it much easier to predictable to do large buildings outside of the city boundary inside of Corman Park. That shouldn't exist like this. So
I want to ask you if we look at other projects, you talked a little bit about the rail relocation and some of the other projects. Is there a synergy or you as mayor, do you tap into provincial and federal partnerships or look to other levels of government? How would you see that unfolding as a mayor in your term?
well, the rail issue definitely will tie into federal and provincial governments. There's no way around that. I propose that we even go under the city, or at least that we look at it. Not to say that it was exactly a plan, but I can tell you from mining experience and the people that I've talked to that have way more experience than I'll ever have, they don't see why we didn't look at it. And it could be a very good option for the rail companies. It could simplify, get rid of all their crossing costs. It could be a reason that they want to come to the table, because right now they're just not even interested to talk to the city, and the city spent what 340 grand on a study that both CN and CP just outrightly denied. They just said it's not in our interest to even look at it. So they're going to go back to doing some other thing. But the federal and provincial governments need to be on side with this. And one thing that I think the federal government could help with is restricting the size of trains to limit some of the restrictions that we have in the city. And that is a federal thing that could be brought in to try to provide more safety. It would mean that we'd have more trains, but they would be smaller, so with more breaks in between. And the rail companies wouldn't like it as much, but it would be safer for our city. And I definitely have been advocating for this for quite a while now. So
Talk a little bit about crime and safety initiatives in the past. We've seen a bit of a spike in some crime stats in Saskatoon, high rates of homicides. Um, with the Dubé Lighthouse as maybe a hot spot for some and some strategies around dealing with crime and safety, not just in the downtown, but in Saskatoon as a whole. What would you see in your role as mayor in making Saskatoon a safer place?
you know, my neighbor was killed in 2012, and I was a witness in those shooting trials. It's a pretty significant event for me, and I take this pretty seriously. I used to live along 20th Street when I was in university, and the area has changed. I've worked on 20th Street. So, I mean, the areas have definitely changed over time. And the dynamic and the issues for the police have definitely changed. And I've done some ride-alongs with the police over the years, and I can't believe the amount of social and mental health issues the police have to deal with. And we need to dramatically change how this is done. And the police are working very hard to find new ways with integrated units. The lighthouse, the problem with part of it is the density. The idea was an admirable one, and there's been huge effort to try to make it work, but they just keep adding more and more people because there's that many more people coming out of the woodwork with issues. And instead of separating some of the issues with people with the same grouping into a subgroup and getting them away, they're all grouped together, and pretty soon it all muddies everything. What we need to do is divide these groups up a bit and give targeted treatment to groups of them that are similar, and get them outside of the lighthouse, outside of the location, and possibly even outside the city would be my take. But that's a provincial jurisdiction. And I'm a strong advocate, and I'm not going to just let people push around the city. It's a provincial obligation, and it's their responsibility, but it's in my backyard if I'm mayor, and I am not going to let this lay. And it's not going to take me 4 years to start getting answers from the city on this, or from the province. So, I mean, the police, I believe, are doing everything they can. We need to give better tools to the police, and we need to remove the police from certain situations so that they're not adversely affected the way they are right now.
We have the election coming up November 9th. You're elected mayor. What would you see as your vision for the next 4 years?
Well, restricting debt as much as possible to try to reduce costs so that we can look at cutting taxes when I know how much money we actually can have. Because right now we're what, $14 million in debt further. We may need to borrow money to actually maintain services. We may have some big infrastructure failure that we have to deal with. Those things can be unforeseen, and we need to be prepared for it. But I want infill development. The biggest thing that the city needs to look at is growing inwards, and there's too many people that are nothing but focused with going outwards. And the inwards development community around 20th Street everywhere, there's holes everywhere because they're ignoring the infill of the city and they're growing outwards, and all of these social issues get compounded because of it. We're creating wastelands. And the houses that they're taking back, they don't own the lots for. If you don't own the lot, you can't redevelop it right away. So even if you tear the house down and save it from fire, you haven't done much. So anyway, I think we need to help people, but we need to be smarter about what we're doing. And I don't think that's been happening.
Glad to see you put your name forward, Cary, and I wish you the best of success and good luck with the election November 9th.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.